Okay, so we are live now. Welcome to another episode of Entab CampusCare EdTalks, an exclusive platform where we invite pioneers from the education industry to share their years of experience and insights with us. So before moving forward, let me introduce you to Entab. With experience of more than 2 decades, Entab has been associated with over 1,500 schools across India, evolving them to become new age digital campuses by providing them mature and futuristic ERP, CRM, and mobile apps. In today's session, we'll discuss about raising a curious child. We'll understand that the change in a child's curiosity as he or she adolescents from childhood. We'll also learn about the role of curiosity in curating relevant learning experiences. So, to discuss the same, we have Shahista, ma'am, founder director FloMont World School, Bangalore. For her contribution to the field of education, ma'am has been awarded with the Best Montessori School for Elementary Studies in Bangalore, South Indian Entrepreneur Award, and the Best Speaker Award at Bangalore School Expo. So, welcome to the show, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, ma'am, moving forward, ma'am, what is curiosity and what are the stages of development that the child moves from childhood to adolescence with regards to his or her curiosity?
So, first of all, Megha, thank you for that question. I think it's a very relevant question. So, when we talk about curiosity, curiosity is nothing but the innate desire to gather information to further our understanding about something. So, simply put, it's a desire to learn or to know something, right? In fact, curiosity is the very nature of all human beings. So, if you look at all the development and the progress around us, you'll see it's the result of curious minds, right? Minds that have explored their curiosity about the world and the challenges contained within it, and they've come up with imaginative and innovative solutions. All because they simply started with asking questions, right? So when it comes to children, children are born curious, right? To quote Eleanor Roosevelt, she said, at a child's birth, right? If a mother could ask her fairy godmother for a useful gift for her child, it would be the gift of curiosity. It's really a very, very powerful tool if you really understand it. And if you have spent any time with children, um, you will know that they are dedicated, persistent, and sometimes relentless question askers. They'll ask about everything around them: the sky, the breakfast you're eating, the leaves on the trees, the street lights, the
Question
people on
goes like
TV.
why the clouds are blue, why the sun is orange, like that.
Exactly. So they will ask questions about everything. Nothing is spared from a child's mind. So the question then really is why? Why do they ask these questions? Why is asking questions an important part of their cognitive development? And this is where we really need to understand, the stages that young children go through as far as their mind and their cognitive development is concerned. So very young children, and I'm talking about the first stage of development, which we consider as 3 years to 6 years, right? They essentially want to understand the world around them. And this is the stage also where their personality is created, their self identity is formed. So they ask questions to gather information about the world. And they begin to store this data. And we say, as Montessorians, that at this stage, the child's mind is very absorbent. So they begin to pretty much absorb everything from their environment, which is why early education and providing the right experiences becomes so important, because children are trying to understand the processes around them, the world around them, with repeated questions of who, what, when, where, and of course, why. And as they become older, these questions become a little more complicated because now they start using their reasoning mind. Okay, so this is the stage where we in Montessori terminology call as the second plane of development. And essentially, these are children in the age group of, I would say, 6 to 12 years. So the questions lead to the development of the imagination, because now the child is capable of abstract thought. And as children grow into their adolescent years, as they get older, they want to now understand their place in the community, right? They want to understand their culture and how they're a part of it. And the question and the thinking revolves around understanding their role in the life of everybody around them. So they want to understand the feelings and the emotions and what is right and what is wrong. And they're curious about world problems and finding solutions. So if you really look at development of the brain, it has a lot to do with creating understanding. And that is best done through the power of curiosity and wonder and asking questions.
Absolutely right. So, ma'am, moving forward, ma'am, in your opinion, what can educators and parents do to foster curiosity in their children?
Megha, not too long ago, I came across a write up. I love reading, so I came across this write up on creating a culture of inquiry and curiosity. And in this write up, there's a reference to a research that happened with kindergarten children all the way up to middle school children, where the children were brought in to ask questions about a particular topic. And what's so interesting is that the kindergarten children asked a lot of questions, so much so that it was difficult to write down all of them. But the third and the fourth and the fifth graders hardly asked more than about 3 to 4 questions. But when it came to the middle school children, they were more focused on wanting to know if the questions were right, not just asking the questions, but if these questions were right. And what we understand here is that there's a shift towards compliance rather than curiosity. And for me as an educator, I find this really tragic because if children leave school less curious than when they have started, then I think we have failed them somewhere as educators. But that's also why we need to be so much more mindful to the fact that curiosity can be encouraged. It can be fostered in children from a very young age. So when we train as educators, we learn about Bloom's taxonomy, and I'm pretty sure that pretty much all educators, the larger portion of them, are familiar with Bloom's theory. For the people listening in and who are not aware, it's basically a progression of thinking skills in terms of categorizing them from higher order thinking skills to lower order thinking skills, or vice versa, where the bottom of the ladder is the skill of memory and recall. So if a child is learning something for the sake of just memory and recall, then they're not really tapping into all their powers of thinking. So, what we need to do as adults and educators is provide them with experiences that allow them to use higher order thinking skills, like explaining, analyzing, reflecting, deliberating, um, creating ideas, which is pretty much the highest level of thinking. So, now the big question is how? How do we do this? So, I will give you 2 simple tips that can be used by anyone, a parent or a teacher, to foster this level of thinking in children. Okay, right from very, very young years, right? Um, so, the first thing you do when a child comes to you with a question is you acknowledge the very act of questioning itself as appreciated. So, when a child asks you a question, meet it with amazement by saying, "Wow, what an amazing question!" Or, "That's a really good question you're asking me." So when you do this, you're sending a very powerful message, multiple messages, in fact, right? You are teaching children that they are allowed to participate and even take control of their learning and their curiosity. And their drive to know about the world is a positive thing, right? Many times we lose patience to answer questions, but when we meet questions with the appreciation for those questions, what we're trying to say is that you're doing the right thing by asking those questions. You're doing the right thing by voicing your opinions, and the most important message is that you are being heard. Children realize that they're actually being listened to, and this is very, very important. So not only are we building the confidence in the child, but we're also doing something a lot more strategic. If you really, really think about it, we are withholding the answer, right? When we end a question, with a direct answer, we stop the process of learning. So when children ask us questions, the indication really is that there are synapses that are already firing and the intellectual curiosity is at work. So saying, "What an amazing question," actually seizes that moment of inspiration and turns it into an opportunity for deeper learning. So, in a way, it's not the end of the conversation, but beginning of further engagement to suggest various ways in which answers can be found. So here I will let you in on a little bit of a secret, okay? If you want or if you wish to build the curiosity of your child, do not fill your child's head with answers, but foster a lifelong ability to learn by instilling a culture of asking questions. Which brings me to my second tip that I would want to give everyone who's listening in. Ensure that you don't give answers or direct answers to the children. When I was in teacher training, we were taught the art of putting the ball back in the child's court by countering a question with a more reflective one. And my all time favorite is to ask the child, but what do you think? And you will be amazed at what the children can conclude in their own way. So, this practice, in fact, has led me to learn a lot from my own children, many, many times. So, first, acknowledge the wonder of curiosity by saying, "That's an amazing question," or "What a wonderful thing to ask me," or something that kind of makes the child know that they're being appreciated.
Right.
And then redirect the child's thought by asking, "What do you think is the answer?" without giving the straight answer. So, here, however, I want to put a disclaimer, right? Sometimes children do need simple and direct answers, especially when it comes to issues of safety and well being, right? So, if your child asks you, "Is it okay for me to play with fire?" you definitely don't want to say, "What do you think?" Right? You want to explain to them that the hazard of doing something that can be harmful to their personal being. So anything that has to do with emotional and physical safety should be handled with direct and simple answers. But you want to keep, I mean, because you also want to understand that sometimes children ask questions to test their boundaries and limits too. So you kind of want to keep that in mind.
Absolutely, ma'am. So beautifully explained, ma'am, everything. So, ma'am, moving to the end of the webinar. So, ma'am, what is the audience wants to know that what is the role of curiosity in curating relevant learning experiences for children? What are your thoughts on the role of schools and educators in encouraging curiosity inside the classroom?
That's a very good question, Mika. Thank you for asking me that question. Um, Look, the classroom is ground zero for nurturing of the necessary skill sets for children, right? And it is where they can be encouraged to develop optimally and holistically. We know this.
Right.
I can talk about my school. So, at my school, there are two areas that we focus on when it comes to building upon the curiosity of children. The first is, of course, the higher order thinking skills. And the second and the most relevant, I would say, in today's time is metacognition. So I have already explained to you and the viewers about what you mean by higher order thinking skills, right? Based on Bloom's taxonomy. It's basically just moving children from mere memory and recall to more complex ways of thinking. But when it comes to metacognition, it refers to the ability to reflect on one's own thinking and feelings. So, if I were to give you an example, suppose you're reading a book and you got to the end of that page without understanding the content. You'll probably tell yourself, "Wait, what? I didn't understand this." And it will lead you to probably reading that book again, but this time trying to focus on the meaning to gain understanding, right? So, this is the process of reflection of one's thoughts and feelings. And this is what we call as metacognition. And it's a subject of all research, most of the research today, research on growth mindset being one of those examples. So, at my school, we work on the HOTS, which is the higher order thinking skills, and metacognition, or thinking about thinking. Um, in many simple ways, there are many things that can be done in the classroom for any age group of children to foster these skills and to enhance curiosity. And I will share some of, a couple of practices here on this webinar so that members of the education community can also benefit. When we start lessons in my classroom, right, we start with something called as a question inventory. So this is basically allowing children to come up with as many questions as possible on that particular topic, and then allowing them to discover the answers through learning. So these questions are normally a good mix of, what, why, and how questions. So we start off the lessons by getting the children, first off, to ask a whole lot of questions on the subject that they would want to discover. And during the process of learning, we maintain journals to capture reflection. So these are our reflective journals. And we call it inking our thinking. So our children are encouraged, especially in the elementary years, to maintain journals of reflection, which contain their thoughts about probably what they liked about the topic, what they feel was something unexpected that they discovered, what they would like to learn more about the topic. So this creates a conditioning of the mind to think and reflect. So one of the things that we also do is, especially in the Montessori classrooms, is conflict resolution. So our children are given a lot of opportunities to think about people's feelings and how they can help make someone feel better as well. And constant lessons inside the classroom revolve around grace and courtesy, which is sometimes mediated by the teacher and sometimes completely child-led. One of the other main tools that we use inside our classrooms is storytelling. So we have a beautiful cosmic curriculum that introduces children to stories of creation, to inspire their wonder and imagination. But one of the things that is a very important element of our storytelling is autobiographies of great minds and how they used to think. So we talk about why these people behaved, or what they did, why they did what they did, how it made a difference to people's lives and the difference to the society around them. And we have deep discussions on what children think of these characters and what they would do differently, to solve the problems of the world. Another very important thing that I have noticed as an educator is that many a times older children need to be taught how to ask the right questions. They're unsure about how to frame them or ask the questions that are not a direct one. Right. So to assist the children, the teacher demonstrates questioning in a manner in which he or she would ask the question. So teachers use a lot of what we call question stems. For example, she may ask questions that prompt an explanation by starting the question with, "Can you explain to me why?" Or she may want a hypothesis. So she may ask, what would happen if? Or she would want an application-based question where she would ask, what is another example of? So all of these are basically different ways of demonstrating that questions can be structured around the type of answers that we're seeking to get. Okay, and this really helps children to think about questions and figure out different ways of arriving at answers. And when we couple this with the kind of feedback that is needed to help them make their questions a lot more constructive, you'll find that children automatically start asking a lot of questions. But if I were to end this with the most important tip that I would give the educators today and adults, even parents, is that you need to become role models of compassion and understanding, and make the children feel safe about questioning. So when the teacher herself or the adults themselves become a part of the process of learning and discovery, the children do not look at them as figures of authority, right, and control, but someone who's like who is an explorer just like them, and who is excited about discovering knowledge. And by doing this, I think educators make the children feel more open to asking questions and taking risks to dig deeper into their levels of curiosity. And it's important to understand that when children fail, and they will fail, it is important for us adults around them to help see that failing does not make them a failure, right? Quite the opposite. It's the only way they will become successful.
Yes.
I think we as educators today really need to keep learning about our children and how to keep up with the evolution that is happening. Quite frankly, I mean, I have a 3-year-old who, just the other day I had a meeting, and I just requested him. I said, maybe authoritarian than I thought. I didn't realize it. I told him to not come into the room until I finished my meeting. And 2 minutes into my meeting, I see him come inside the door. And keep in mind, this is a 3-year-old. And he looks at me and he says, "You cannot talk to me like this, Mama." And I just looked at him in amazement. And the next thing that he said really blew my mind away. He said, "Are you listening to me, Mama?" So this child is trying to understand my reaction to his statement by assuming that I hadn't heard him. So he's trying to kind of create his own reality there, trying to understand. So I don't know. It kind of amazes me that children now, even as young as 3 year olds, are capable of reflective thought. That's how evolved they've become. So unless we educators really understand this and are mindful of it, I think it's going to be a very overwhelming experience moving down the line.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your valuable suggestions upon this beautiful topic. And it was a great interactive session with you. So, thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us.
Thank you, Meghan. Thank you for being such an anchor and such a lovely anchor. And thank you
No,
for having me today.
thank you, ma'am. And to all our viewers who are watching us, if you haven't subscribed the channel, so do subscribe it for regular updates. Till then, stay happy, stay safe. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.